from old TV shows and movies.
Right. Right. And we sell records and toys also.
We'll be showing a lot of those later on. It's going to be a lot of fun. But let's start off by talking about Batman. He was created in 1939 by an 18-year-old named Bob Kane. How did Bob Kane create the character, and why would he want to do something like that?
At that time, the comic book industry was just starting to be formulated, and after the advent of Superman, they said, let's create another superhero. So Bob Kane came up with the idea of combining Zorro and a character called the Batman, who was taken from an old silent movie called The Bat Whispers.
Right.
And he made him an everyday kind of guy, not an alien from another planet, and it immediately became a success. From about 2 months after it was originally issued, they knew that Batman was going to be a major phenomenon.
That's amazing for an 18-year-old to create something so successful like that. One of the things about Batman that people really like is, as you say, he's an ordinary man, and he's very approachable, more so than Superman, who is from Krypton, and he really can't relate to that. But Batman had a tragic incident in his young life, and it really shaped him into the adult that he is. Why don't you explain what causes Batman to be the Caped Crusader?
Well, he was attending a movie. Coincidentally, it was The Mark of Zorro that him and his family was seeing. And as they were walking home, his mother and father were killed by a gunman, and while Bruce Wayne watched. And he vowed to seek revenge on the criminals and injustice in the world. And so he used the vast wealth that his father had accumulated to train himself physically and mentally and in deductive reasoning, and he became supposedly the world's greatest detective. And he attempted to bring the parents' killers to justice.
Mm-hmm. That's one point we should make here right now. In the movie that's out in 1989, the Joker was the man who killed his parents, but in the comic book series, that's not the case.
Right. It was originally just a thug, and he eventually did catch him.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
Batman in the comic books flourished for about 2 years before he was joined by his partner, Boy Wonder.
Right.
And you brought along a comic book that shows the first edition of Robin being in the comics. And I guess Batman really took off in popularity even more after Robin came in.
Right. When they introduced the Boy Wonder, Robin, it immediately became popular with the young children who could identify with Robin where they couldn't identify with a millionaire 30-year-old like Batman. And it started a whole trend for young sidekicks for superheroes that continues even to this day.
Mm-hmm. And how was Robin introduced? How did he get to hook up with Batman?
Robin's origin was very similar to Batman's. His parents were killed. They were trapeze artists, and they were murdered in a protection scheme in a circus. And Batman happened to be there as Bruce Wayne at the circus, and he took Robin under his... Dick Grayson, which is Robin's real name, took him under his wing and trained him to be...
The 40s and the 50s, and now we're up to the 60s. In 1966, Adam West became Batman on TV. How was the show in the beginning? Was it well received?
It became the biggest hit of the mid-1960s. It appealed to children for what they thought was a dramatic rendition of Batman, and the adults loved it because it was very funny. Mm-hmm. It had a lot of comedy that went over the heads of kids, so it appealed to a very wide audience.
Was there a contingent of comic book fans who objected to the fact that it was so campy?
Oh, absolutely. It probably did more to hurt the comic book industry than any single event, because although the adults loved the TV show because it was funny, they got the idea in their head that comic books were very silly, and they weren't. What's happened is Batman became silly, the Batman comic book became silly in the 1960s, and it was very difficult to overcome that, the idea that comic books are just for kids, and because they're not.
I see. Some people thought they were watching, when they were watching the TV series Batman, they thought they were watching comic books in action, basically, even though that's not the case. We've jumped up to the 60s, as I said, and you've brought along some other memorabilia that is really interesting. Things that not only have to do with comic books, but right here, a Halloween set, a Halloween mask. What's unusual about this?
This is unusual because it came out in 1966 by Ben Cooper, the company that makes most of the Halloween costumes, and it usually was put out in a box, and this is the only time I've ever seen this in a plastic playset. And this is worth about $150.
That's really interesting. Let's go to the phones. They're really lighting up. Hi, you're live on 27 West. Where are you calling from, and what's your question?
My name's Steve. I'm calling from Hudson, Massachusetts, and I'm a big Batman collector, and I was looking to find other Batman things. I was wondering if Paul had them in his store or not.
Well, that's a good question. Business is booming, Paul. You told me earlier 57% your sales have increased over this time last year.
Yes, we have a lot of Batman items. We've got a lot of posters and Batman comic books and T-shirts and record albums and toys. And with the popularity of the Batman movie, a lot of people are bringing in stuff out of their attic to sell because this is the best time to sell them because they're at a highest price ever.
What are some of the other things you brought along that might make interesting reading?
Well, this
Here's
is
the TV guide.
the TV guide from the 1966 period, and this is pretty collectible because most people don't save TV guides, and so there's very few of these left around. And
one thing we should point out here is the Batman in this picture and in the 60s wore gray and blue. However, the Batman in the movie in 1989 wears black. Why did they do that?
well, on the TV show, they were trying to get it more colorful, and the on the movie, they're trying to capture the very dark, grim atmosphere that the comic books are now portraying. And but in the 60s, trying to have a comedy, it wouldn't have looked well. It wouldn't have looked right with a dark suit.
Right now, we should probably show the difference between the 60s television series and also the movie. Jim Barnett here at Channel 27 has put together a nice contrast of the two elements, the two Batman of 1966 to 68 and Batman of 1989.
Joker. But it's time for us to make our own collection. Destroy them!
Vicky Vale.
Bruce Wayne.
And what do you do for a living?
Lieutenant, is there a 6-foot bat in Gotham City?
Nice outfit.
What a difference. Number one, the big difference is in the technology. Batman of the 60s used his harness and his rope and his lariat to do a lot of things. Here we see all this high-tech
Right.
Batmobiles and things like that. What else strikes you as you watch that?
The darkness of the film. That's been one of the main points that most of the critics are loving about this film, is that it's very grim and overly dark. And it's really doing a good job of removing the silliness of the Batman TV show from people's minds.
Let's go back to the phones. Hi, thank you for holding. Where are you calling from and what's your question?
My name is Pasquale. I'm calling from Worcester. And I wonder if your guest has any knowledge of the 1950 serial in the movie theaters of Batman.
Yes, actually, there are two serials. One was in 1943, and the other one was actually originally shown in 1949, and with different people playing Batman. And they're pretty popular right now. Everyone's looking for old Batman items, and they're not readily available on videotape yet. But they were very crude, and they showed one chapter every week to induce kids to come to the theater.
And is there talk of putting them onto videotape and releasing them?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully by the end of the year.
Thank you very much for the call, Saul. We have to take a break. Please stay with us on 27 West.
He appeared in the very first issue of Batman comics in 1940, and people immediately fell in love with him because he was a crazy, psychopathic killer. And the Batman, just like in the movie, is responsible in a way for the Joker's being. And the Joker was a criminal that fell into a vat of acid while trying to escape the Batman. And in the movie, it's very similar. They changed a few things. But
How much would something like this sell for?
this toy in the original box, which is hard to find, because most kids, when they bought toys, they took them out of the box and then threw the box away. As it is worth about $150.
Cost $10 in 1976. We have a patient caller. Hi, you're live on 27 West. Where are you calling from, and what's your question?
I'm calling from Worcester, and my question is, what does Batman feel about the recent Supreme Court ruling on abortion?
Well, Batman really wouldn't have any comment on something like that. Let's go over to some of the other things that you've brought in. Here we have a game from the 60s, Batman and Robin.
And in this game, they're fighting the Joker also.
Now, this is a real simple game. I'm sure it didn't cost much money then. It probably, I think you even told me it came up before the TV series came out.
Yes, this came out actually a year before the TV series, which makes it fairly hard to find because Batman was not a hot property at that point. And in 1966, there were literally hundreds of Batman products on the market. This one's especially popular, like I said, because it's not an easy one to find.
Let's go back to the Bat phones. Hi, where are you calling from, and what's your question?
I was wondering, what's the rumor about the three Robins?
Three
Comic
Robins.
book series.
Well, in the original comic book where Robin first appeared, his name was Dick Grayson. And he was with Batman from about 1939 to 1984, at which point he left Batman and became the member of a new supergroup called the Teen Titans, and he changed his name to Nightwing instead of Robin. Batman then went solo for a short while, took on a new partner named Jason Todd, who became a new Robin. They quickly determined that no one liked him, redid a new origin, and he's the Robin that was recently killed in the Batman comic book. So a lot of people who think that it was the original Robin that was killed are being fooled by media. It wasn't that way.
That's really interesting. Now, you just rattled that off the tip of your tongue really easily. Is there a whole group of people like yourself who can quote everything about Robin and Batman and the Joker and everybody?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. I mean, I've been doing this as a hobby since the late 1950s, and I've been doing it full-time as a living. We've had our store on Chandler Street for 10 years, so this is all I do.
It's a fun job. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, thank you for holding. Where are you calling from, and what's your question?
I'm calling from Bolton. My name is Jeff. I was wondering if you knew the Riddler's real name.
Yes, his name is Edward Nygma, and it's short for Enigma. And
I get it. Now, who's the Riddler?
the Riddler is a villain of Batman's that actually didn't appear very much until the TV show. His main claim to fame is that he leaves these crazy riddles for Batman to figure out, because most of these guys, they don't want to just commit crimes, they just want to torture Batman at the same time.
Right.
And he's become a very popular villain since the TV show, but it had actually only appeared like twice before that.
Let's talk some more about the movie and the popularity of the Joker in the movie. He's almost stealing the stage from Batman. Why is he, as you said before, popular? What is it about him that people really like?
Mostly because he's crazy, and he's a perfect foil for Batman. Batman has always been slightly nuts to begin with. Otherwise, because if he wasn't, he wouldn't be putting on a bat suit and swinging around the city.
Sure.
He would just be fighting crime as a police officer or something like that. So they just play off of each other very well. And that's the idea behind the casting of Michael Keaton, who is primarily kind of a crazy comedian. And so by putting him as a crazy Batman, they had a perfect choice as Jack Nicholson as the Joker. And it worked real well. In
the movie, though, Michael Keaton does not come across as a crazy comedian. He really studied that part well, going back to the comic book
Well, he
days.
did, but they make a pretty clear point that he is kind of nutso, or else he wouldn't do that. That he doesn't have normal relationships with people because he's so obsessed with the revenge of his parents' death. And that pretty much makes him crazy.
That's true. It's time to take a break. We're talking with Paul Halley of That's Entertainment in Worcester. Please stay with us. TV show, which was in blue and gray. And also, Paul, why don't you talk about this comic book here? It's really high-tech.
Yeah, this is the new format called the Prestige format. A very slick paper inside, a very hard cardboard cover, and for $4.95. They've come a long way since they were 10 cents.
So obviously the person who bought this would be buying it to save, not to buy one every week, as a lot of comic book collectors do.
Right. I mean, but it is being collected also by, and read just by regular people.
Let's go back to the phones. Hi, thanks for waiting. Where are you calling from, and what's your question?
I'm calling from Medfield, Massachusetts, and I was wondering, why did they sell the Batman mobile without an engine?
Well, on the giveaway when they gave away the Batmobile on cable, they took the engine out because it's not really street legal. It really wouldn't operate and conform to the laws of the United States for driving a car.
But it was a pretty slick machine, you have to admit.
It's pretty nice looking.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on 27 West. Where are you calling from, and what's your question?
My name is Alicia, and I'm calling from Worcester. And I know that Paul and his store gave a promotion where they gave away tickets to the movie. My question is, does Paul think that there will be other Batman movies to follow? And if so, would he do the same thing?
There's definitely going to be more movies. Billy D. Williams, the character who played Harvey Dent, the district attorney, has signed for 3 motion pictures. And in the 3rd one, he's going to be a villain called Two-Face. That was a famous villain that Batman fought frequently. And we're going to come up with some kind of nifty promotion, I'm sure, for the 2nd one.
Yeah, this is really booming for all people who do have comic book stores and collectible stores.
absolutely.
You couldn't have asked for a better
Absolutely. We've been waiting for it for 9 years.
movie. Yeah. Let's go back to the phones. We probably have time for one more. Hi, you're live on 27 West. What's your question?
Hi, my name's Evan, and I'm from Medford. I was wondering approximately how much would a first issue of Jason Todd as the Robin cost?
About 2 years ago, the book was selling for about $1.75, and right now, I've seen a lot of other comic retailers charging around $15 for it. We still sell them for about $8, but they sell very quickly.
Okay, thank you very much for the call. You recently sold the original Batman comic book, one of the original Batman comic books at That's Entertainment. How much did it go for?
I sold it for $5,400, and it was a really nice condition first issue of Batman from 1940, and it's pretty hard to find.
Yeah.
It's probably about 100 of them in the world.
That's all?
Yes.
So that person could probably obviously resell that for a lot more money.
He already has.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yes.
A quick turnaround.
Right.
Quick turnaround. If we have a couple minutes left, anything you want to hold up, Paul, that you brought along that might be interesting?
These are the kind of items that came out in the mid-70s, the mid-1970s, and they didn't sell real well because superheroes were not the rage in the 1970s, and these are fairly scarce items now to find in the original boxes. So this is the kind of valuable stuff we're looking for.
It's a lot of fun, and if you would like to check it out, you can go down to Paul's store. That's Entertainment on Chandler Street in Worcester. I have to thank you for being my Bat guest today.
Thank you very much.
27 West tomorrow, we'll deal with one of Worcester's founding families, the Salisbury family. Please join us.